So we acquired Poloniex in the first quarter of 2018, and the history of Poloniex is the founder of Poloniex was mining altcoins back in 2014, and there was nowhere to sell them, so he built an exchange where you could sell altcoins.
The Trader Cobb Crypto Show, talking business in blockchain.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Trader Cobb Crypto Show, proudly sponsored by zipmex.com.au. Get across and have a look. Today's guest is the co-founder and CEO of Circle. It's Jeremy. How are you, mate?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Great to have you on the show. Now, obviously, there's a lot going on at Circle, a lot of new things going on at Circle, and a lot of the conversation prior to now, and hopefully the one we're going to have, has basically just been because you've been sponsored, or you got investment or raised, or whatever you want to call it, from Goldman Sachs. Let's get into what the big picture is. So what's the big picture for Circle?
Yeah, I mean, so we've been in the crypto space for about 6 years.
Yep.
And sort of maybe just going back, when we started the company, the thing that got us really excited was this idea that effectively new protocols would emerge for value exchange on the internet that would make it possible for people everywhere to exchange value with each other at the speed of the internet in the same way we could share data and content. And we've been pursuing that obviously for a number of years. I think ultimately we're interested in both how does what we think of as traditional kind of payments and banking become crypto native and be open and accessible, sort of the open finance concept that a lot of people talk about. And then further, how do businesses ultimately use this as a way to raise capital, enter into economic arrangements, other things. So the kind of big picture that got us interested 6 years ago, I think what's interesting now is we've had lots of iterations, products, pivots, businesses we've acquired, businesses we've spun out, other things along the way. But I think the interesting thing is now, 6 years in, the technology, things that we're working on, but then more broadly, is finally getting to a place where we can actually implement this more open financial system, built on crypto native infrastructure.
Okay, so speaking of the spin-off type things, obviously you've acquired companies, you've built some, you've spun some off. I read recently that you spun off Poloniex elsewhere, an exchange that were you there at the early days of Poloniex?
So we acquired Poloniex in the first quarter of 2018, and the history of Poloniex is the founder of Poloniex was mining altcoins back in 2014, and there was nowhere to sell them, so he built an exchange where you could sell altcoins.
There you go.
And really was sort of a very, very primary altcoin exchange. It was the first exchange to list Ethereum. Very much at the cutting edge of new projects and things. And then in 2017, when the market for digital assets really took off, they saw really explosive growth. For quite some time, it was actually number one, number two market share exchange in the world. But I think ran up against, as a US-based company, started to run up against, the regulatory things that were starting to happen with the SEC. The sort of requirements for running something at that scale were really difficult, and we had known them and worked with them. They'd worked with our OTC desk, and I think they were looking for a company that could help kind of take it over and take it forward. We closed the deal again in Q1 of 2018, right as the market was starting to really decline.
Come off, yeah.
And it was interesting to watch. I mean, over the course of 2018 and into 2019, effectively we saw rapid growth in non-US international exchanges, in particular out of Asia, who played by a different set of rules, and weren't so concerned with US regulatory situations. And then at the same time, the regulatory environment in the US for crypto exchanges, especially for broad-based crypto exchanges that want to support a lot of different projects, got much, much worse.
Yeah.
And we were pretty outspoken about that. but I think ultimately we reached a place where our view is that for Poloniex to continue to compete as a high quality exchange, it needed to have the level of capital and the ability to operate internationally without the burden of the U.S. And so we recently spun Poloniex out. The leadership team and management is gone. It's now out of an Asian investment group, and it's an international focus. And unfortunately, as part of that, we did announce that we're winding down the U.S. portion of it.
Okay.
So U.S. customers can no longer trade and actually have to withdraw their assets from the platform.
So that was one of the thoughts I was having was, I guess you had two choices: either sell to an Asia-centric base or business or area, or take it over there and restructure it or reset it up. Was that ever an option, or is it just too much going on? I mean, that's a lot of work, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a real difference between a U.S.-based company that's trying to build something to operate in Asia versus more Asian-centric operations.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece is just the capital investment required is really significant, and so the investment group that we spun it out to is investing over $100 million into the business, and I think that's great and that's critical, and I think it's exactly what it needs. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's go into the next stage I want to get into, which is this seed investing for companies and whatnot. So you're doing something. I want you to talk to, but something along the lines of, if I remember correctly, seed investment into companies and to help them get going. Is that something like that, or it's called Seed?
Yeah, so Seed Invest is also a company we acquired, and we closed that deal in Q1 of this year. And Seed Invest is a really interesting company. They've been around for about 5 years, and basically in the U.S., a whole new set of laws were passed over the prior years that were like crowdfunding laws. So basically, laws that allowed platforms and companies to issue securities and sell them and market them directly to investors on the internet, and then also open that up not just to sort of accredited, sort of wealthy people, investors, but also to unaccredited investors. So the average person could, for the first time, essentially invest in like venture capital like companies and startups. And so Seed Invest grew over several years to be the largest equity crowdfunding platform in the US. It's a regulated broker-dealer, also approved as what's called an ATS, which allows for secondary trading of those securities, and have helped hundreds of companies raise hundreds of millions of dollars, like issuing these securities on the internet. When you think about crypto and you think about things like token offerings or digital assets, in some ways, like what a lot of people did in 2017 were unregistered securities offerings.
And you're not offering any equity, so what are you actually buying?
Right, and what are you getting? And so our view, and this goes back to like founding vision of Circle, is financial contracts will become executed in code. They'll become crypto native, and those financial contracts will be tokenized, meaning there will be this asset. These public blockchains will be the settlement ledger for those, but sophisticated financial contracts like equity in a company, or a lending contract, or a debt contract, or a labor contract, or any type of economic arrangement that you can codify literally, will move to these blockchains. And so, but that's going to have to work within the existing framework for securities, not just in the US but around the world. And so for us, we wanted to converge sort of platforms that allow for capital formation and securities issuance on the internet with crypto.
Yep.
So we're in the process of doing that so that companies can issue digital assets and have those be investable and tradable and other things through the Seed Invest platform.
So how does that work for the company? So does that mean that you can kind of put aside, say, 20% equity that you would like to bring to the platform, and the market decides what the price is, or do you issue a price?
Yeah, no, you issue a price. Yeah, and so one of the things that what we do is we help the company figure out like what's the structure of the offering, what's ultimately what do we think the right raise is, how do we think about valuation? They may have a specific view on it and want to be executing that, but we're only going to take on a project if we think that we can fill that deal, basically. And so we've got a large base of investors that have already invested into deals on our platform, and that just grows every time we add a new deal to the platform. And sometimes these are, pieces of capital that a company, maybe they've closed some capital from angels or VCs, but they want to have a piece of it that they can sell to the crowd.
Yeah.
And so they'll put that piece to the crowd through our platform as well.
Sounds like an unreal operation whereby, for the right project, of course, which, let's be honest, but whether you're raising Series A, seed, or Series B, it's got to be the right project anyway.
Yeah.
But it sounds like something that maybe the smaller business might be able to take advantage of without having to go through all the legal loopholes and using lawyers and all that sort of thing, which is very expensive if you're going to go to raise. Was that the purpose of the platform as much as the exchange?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is that I'm an entrepreneur and have founded and built many companies, and I think one of the things that is like least enjoyable about starting companies and growing companies is raising capital. And when you think about the efficiency of markets and how the market efficiency has been brought into transportation and restaurants and communications and media and retail and all these things on the internet, that has not been the case. The efficiency of markets has not been brought to capital markets on the internet. And so we have a system which has a lot of traditional gatekeepers. There's a lot of information asymmetry. It's still really, really painful for entrepreneurs to go through that. And I think the vision is, can you build a marketplace that has the same openness, accessibility, global scale and reach that marketplaces like the Amazon marketplace or Alibaba or eBay or others have built for other types of products? Can you do that for financial products? And that's sort of the motivation there. And it's a belief that a very long tail of businesses should be able to access capital, and a very long tail of individual investors to be able to find those opportunities. And I think like the ICO phenomenon in 2017 was a little microcosm of what happens if you have an open internet capital market.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of ugliness to that as well, but I think it's an example, and sort of digital asset exchanges as we see them today are sort of a microcosm potentially of a future capital marketplace that is more internet centric. And that's, I think, what inspired the founding of Seed Invest, and for us is sort of how we think about the long-term future. Is we want to democratize access to capital, both for investors and for startups and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, fantastic. Is there anything else that's exciting going on at Circles? They're the two things that I was really pumped about.
The other big thing is, a year ago we launched something called Center, which is a consortium for stablecoins that we co-founded with Coinbase, and we issued the first fiat stablecoin on that, which is US dollar coin or USDC, and that's been doing tremendously well. It's now the fastest growing stablecoin in the world. It is the only regulated, compliant, licensed stablecoin. And it's a kind of generalized scheme that other companies can join. We've had about over $1 billion USDC that have been issued to date, 23 billion in on-chain transactions. And so for us, that's like a foundational layer for the future of open finance, is that we have a way to take traditional central bank money, have full cryptocurrency versions of it that get all the benefits of public blockchain. So that's doing incredibly well, and we're building more and more services around that.
Well, it sounds like you've got just about everything covered, mate. You've gotten rid of the exchange that, with US regulation, kind of shut that down for you, to be fair. You brought in the C, which I think is a fantastic opportunity for myself and other businesses out there. As you quite rightly pointed out, a massive gap in the market there, and a massive annoyance. Yeah. It's not the part that entrepreneurs enjoy at all. It's the shitty part. And then also, of course, working into that third part there as well, making sure that the infrastructure's in place, and you guys have got that security around that stable token as well, which is growing very, very quickly. Is there anything else that you are doing?
No, those are the big things.
Mate, well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Jeremy.
Good to talk.
Thank you very much for your time.
Cheers. Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a fantastic day. Bye for now.
The Trader Cobb Crypto Show, talking business in blockchain.